Snow drifted like ash through the late afternoon sky, soft, slow, almost apologetic. The world seemed to be holding its breath. A long, empty road stretched through the frozen fields of Wyoming, lined with old wooden fences and wind-bent grass poking through patches of ice. The sun hung low, a pale disk sinking into gold and rust, painting the horizon in tones that felt both alive and dying. From afar came the sound, faint but growing, the heavy guttural roar of engines. Then silence. Only the wind again. Two motorcycles stood still near a fence, their chrome dulled by frost. Beside them, two men sat slumped on a broken wooden bench, leather vests marked with a red-winged skull that read Hell's Angels. Their faces were bruised, raw from the wind. One held his ribs like something inside him might shatter if he breathed too hard. The other just stared at his gloved hands, shaking from cold and more than cold. The world was still, except for the quiet ticking of the cooling engines. The older of the two, maybe in his 40s, beard rough, hair matted with blood and snow, finally muttered, "We ain't gonna make it before dark." The younger one, barely 30, eyes red-rimmed and haunted, didn't answer. He just nodded faintly, staring down at the frozen ground. The cold bit into their bones, but they didn't move. The kind of silence between them wasn't from comfort, it was from exhaustion and shame. Down the road, maybe 200 yards away, an old woman trudged through the snow, a basket in her hands, wearing a thick knitted cardigan that looked older than the century. Her silver hair caught the last of the light like frost. She was humming softly, an old hymn maybe, her breath clouding in the air. Her name was Evelyn Porter, 74 years old, widow of a farmer, and known in the town as the lady who still bakes bread for strangers. When she saw the two men by the fence, she stopped. The snow under her boots crunched, loud in the quiet. The younger biker lifted his head, startled. Their eyes met, hers calm, kind, unflinching, his broken, unsure, frightened in a way he didn't understand. Evelyn approached slowly. "Evening, boys," she said gently, voice warm but steady. "You look colder than my porch swing in February." Neither of them spoke. The older biker glanced away, as if bracing for judgment. She looked at their bleeding knuckles, the torn patches on their jackets, the ice crusting around their boots. "You'll freeze out here," she said simply. He grunted. "We'll manage." "Doesn't look like it," she said, eyes narrowing softly. "You've got no gloves, no fire, and the nearest diner's 10 miles down. Not much to manage with." Silence again. Only the whisper of wind through the fence. Evelyn sighed, a small puff of breath in the cold. "Well, I've got soup on the stove. Come along before you turn into statues." The younger man blinked. "Ma'am, I wasn't asking," she said, and turned back toward the road. The men exchanged a look. Pride battled reason. The older one muttered, "Hell with it," and pushed himself up with a groan. The younger followed, limping slightly. They walked after her, leaving their bikes parked against the fence like abandoned steel horses. As they trudged through the snow, the sun dipped lower, the light bleeding into violet and gray. The sound of their boots and her quiet humming filled the emptiness between them. Greater than before we continue. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. It really helps us bring you more heartfelt stories like this one. Evelyn's house stood alone on the edge of the field. A small wooden structure with smoke rising from the chimney, its windows glowing amber against the frost. Inside, warmth wrapped around them like a living thing. The scent of bread, wood smoke, and something rich on the stove filled the air. "Sit," she said, pointing to the table. "You look like you've been through hell." The older man gave a faint smirk. "You could say that." "Then consider this heaven's waiting room," she replied, setting down 2 bowls of steaming soup. They sat. For a moment, the only sound was the clink of spoons and the quiet crackle of the fire. Evelyn poured tea, her movements unhurried, steady, the kind that come from years of carrying silence well. After a while, she asked softly, "Accident?" The younger one shook his head. "No, ma'am, we ran into some trouble in town." She nodded, eyes never leaving the kettle. "The kind of trouble that leaves marks or the kind that leaves memories?" He swallowed. "Both." The older biker shifted in his chair. We don't mean any harm. Things got out of hand. Some punk mouthed off and he stopped himself, jaw tight. Anyway, we left before it got worse. Evelyn looked at him, really looked. Beneath the rough exterior, she saw exhaustion, guilt, maybe even sorrow. She didn't ask more. Instead, she said quietly, "My husband used to say men fight hardest when they're trying to drown out the quiet inside them." Neither spoke. Outside, the wind howled against the windows. Inside, the fire flickered gold across tired faces. As night deepened, the younger man, Ryan, stared at an old photograph on the wall. A young soldier smiling beside Evelyn, decades younger, sunlight in his eyes. "Your husband?" he asked. Evelyn turned, smiled faintly. "Yes, Jack Porter. Died in '83, heart attack in the field. He was only 50, Ryan nodded, his throat tight. "Sorry." She poured more tea. "Don't be. He was a good man. Hard life, but a kind one. Not many men can say both." The older biker, Cole, looked up from his cup. "Kindness gets you hurt," he said flatly. "Maybe," she said softly, "but so does cruelty. At least kindness leaves a mark you can live with." The fire popped. No one spoke after that. Later, when the storm had settled and the house fell quiet, Evelyn set out blankets in the living room. "You'll stay here tonight," she said. Simply. Ryan hesitated. "You don't even know us." She smiled gently. "I know enough. You were freezing and now you're warm. That's all that matters tonight." As she turned away, Ryan whispered, "Why?" She paused by the door, looking back with eyes both tired and alive. "Because somebody's got to stop the cold from winning." That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. The wind outside moaned like ghosts across the plains. He stared at the ceiling, the fire dying down to embers. His hands ached, not from the fight, but from something deeper. He thought of the man he used to be before the leather, before the anger. And somewhere in the dark, he whispered to himself, "What am I doing?" Cole stirred beside him, but didn't answer. Morning came slow and silver. Frost covered the windows. Evelyn was already up, her voice humming softly in the kitchen. The smell of pancakes drifted through the room. Cole sat up, rubbing his face. "You make breakfast for all the sinners in town?" She smiled. "Only the ones who look hungry." Ryan joined her by the window. "You always live out here alone?" "Not alone," she said, nodding toward the window. "Jack's still here in the wind, in the soil, and the people who stop by. They leave pieces of themselves too. That's enough." Something in Ryan's chest cracked open a little. He hesitated, then said quietly, "You remind me of my mom." Evelyn looked at him, soft eyes. "Then maybe that's why you stopped here." Greater than if this story has touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Your support helps us keep sharing stories that remind us of the power of kindness. When the storm cleared, Cole and Ryan went outside to their bikes. Evelyn stood by the door, bundled in her cardigan, steam rising from her tea. "Thank you," Ryan said, voice quiet but steady. She nodded. "Be good, boys." Cole gave a crooked smile. "No promises." She laughed softly. "Then at least try to do one good thing before the day ends." They rode. Off into the pale morning light, engines growling low, snow kicking up behind them. Evelyn watched until they disappeared down the road, then turned back inside, her house echoing with quiet again. Weeks later, word spread through the small town. 2 bikers, Hell's Angels no less, had pulled over at a gas station nearby. Instead of starting trouble, they'd helped an old man fix his truck, bought food for a homeless vet, and left without saying a word. People talked. Some didn't believe it. Others just shook their heads, but one night Evelyn came home to find something on her porch. A leather jacket folded neatly, with a note tucked inside, "For the warmth you gave us, when the world gave none." She smiled, tears catching in the corners of her eyes, and whispered to the empty night, "You did good, boys." The wind carried her words into the dark, over the fields, down the frozen road where 2 engines once roared. The fire inside her house crackled again, steady, alive. The camera would pull back now, wide shot. The old house glowing against the winter dusk, smoke curling into the sky. Evelyn sitting by the window, tea in hand, her eyes soft and peaceful. A faint echo of engines in the distance. Not real, just memory. Fade out. Sometimes the strongest people are the ones who simply refuse to stop caring. Even the coldest hearts can thaw when touched by the quiet fire of kindness.